How's it going, fight fans? Joey G here from Wrestling Inc., and I am very excited to be sitting next to the man, the mastermind behind it all, Campbell McLaren. Campbell, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Joey, my pleasure. Always a pleasure. You know, I love talking about combat sports. I love talking about wrestling. I just love talking, so it's great to be here.
Well, you know what? We're going to do some talking right now. Campbell, this Saturday, Combate Americas invades Texas with a headlining bout. Tito Ortiz, Alberto El Patron. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you saw in Alberto to put him in this headlining bout next to Tito?
That's a great question. You know, I think to an extent, Alberto put himself in, right? I think he was watching Combate. I think he saw the fighting. And I think after a while, he goes, you know, I think I still got this. I think I could do this. You know, and he had a great tradition in Pride. We all know his wrestling background, right? We all know WWE. We know he's been, you know, son of Dos Caras, very famous wrestler in Mexico. His uncle, very famous luchador. So he's got the wrestling pedigree. There's no doubt. But a lot of people don't know that he fought in Pride in Japan. And if you're an MMA fan, Pride never die. Everyone knows it's like the most legendary thing. The beginnings of the UFC and Pride. That's just the coolest shit that anyone has seen in MMA. There's just no doubt. I will actually admit that Pride is almost as cool as the first UFCs that I did. It's right there. So I think he saw that, and I think he wanted to make a comeback. And I think he was also facing a time in his life where, look, to be very open about it, and he talks about this, a lot of crap went wrong for him. You know, he was dating a woman from WWE, and they were a great couple until the shit hit the fan, right? And it was like oil and water. It didn't mix. I think Alberto was trying to figure out what's the next phase in my life. And I think it all kind of came together. And he said, you know what? I want to do this. I want to kick Troceros. And I said to him, would you fight Tito? He goes, yeah. I mean, Tito Ortiz, it's a little bit like going, would you fight Mike Tyson? And he went like, yeah, I'll fight Tito. There was no, let me think about it and talk to my coach and my trainer and my guru and my sensei. He goes, yeah, I'll fight Tito. I'm like, okay, I think we could do this.
Well, yeah, like you said, a lot of people aren't super familiar, especially pro wrestling fans, about Alberto's extensive fight background. He's even utilized a lot of that training in his pro wrestling with a lot of the maneuvers that he uses. Combate has just partnered now with Access TV, also home to Impact Wrestling, also home to WOW, Women of Wrestling, my favorite show. Can you foresee a possible crossover between Combate and Impact in the future?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, look, it's a great promotion. I like it. And I think that, again, I'll come back a little bit to this. In the combat sports world, there's sort of a hierarchy, a pecking order, right? Boxing is up here. They're the purists, the sweet science, the technical. You know, Floyd Mayweather, great technical boxer. Boring. Floyd, I want my money back. I went to the fight of the century to watch you fight Pacquiao. It was $4,000 a fucking seat. I want my money back. That was not fight of the century. That was boring of the century. All right. Boxing purists up here. Okay. Then it's the MMA guys. Yeah, anything goes. They're checkers and we're chess. It's a mind game. Blah, 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 blah. Great. I fucking started the sport. You don't have to tell me about. All right. Thank you, though. And then in that pecking order, wrestling. Why? Wrestling requires tremendous athletic ability. You know, gravity's real. You know, no one suspends gravity, right? There's no part of the planet where when a 245-pound guy lands on you, that shit doesn't hurt, right? So it's also for Hispanic fans, AAA, wrestling, luchadors, everything is part of the culture. So we're very welcoming to that. You know, Sin Cara has made a Combate Americas mask for the pay-per-view event. I know Rey Mysterio is coming. Sin Cara, of course, will be there. Cain Velasquez, I believe, is going to be there. So we love wrestling. So I think it's a perfect fit for us. I think that, look, God bless CM Punk. Sam, I don't know if you'll see this. You've got balls as big as All Outdoors. You really do. You really do. And I respect that. But you stunk up the room. You really did. You stunk up the room for wrestling. And I think part of what Alberto can do is what Brock Lesnar did, which is show these MMA snobs that wrestling requires tremendous toughness, tremendous skill, tremendous focus. And I think that's part of why Alberto wants to do this too. When Tito said, you're not a real fighter, I mean, it genuinely pissed him off. So I think that's part of the answer too. I would love to. The question might be, do I want to do a cross promotion? And the answer is yes, I would love to.
Well, that's good to hear because I think it's something that a lot of fans would like to see. There's one particular promotion does an annual event now called Bloodsport, a hybrid MMA and pro wrestling event. Guys like Tom Lawler, who's also been inside the cage, participated in these types of events. Josh Barnett, skilled and trained MMA fighter, also is essentially it's his baby, his grandchild. So it's cool to hear that you, a guy who has so much history and so much knowledge about combat sports, wants to see this type of crossover happen. So that kind of excites me.
Well, I got the history. I don't know much knowledge.
Trust me, you're a lot more knowledgeable than a lot of these ass clowns over here. Campbell, let me ask you this. At the Combate press conference for Tito and Alberto, you said that the biggest draw for Combate is that fights are 80% more likely to go to knockout than the cards. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I think that it's 81%.
81%. I'm very sorry.
You know, come on, because the guys. So we often say we don't need judges in Combate, right? So the fights end. They usually end in the second round. And I think it just shows an aggressiveness to Hispanic fighters, right? I was making fun of Floyd earlier. Fighting like a Mexican means coming forward, willing to take a couple punches to land one, right? We say MMA stands for much more action, or mucho más acción. Because our fighters are young. They're trying to put on a show. They're trying to make a name for themselves. There isn't a lot of measuring up their opponent. They go for it. So I think, and MMA is a very forgiving sport. It's not how many times you're knocked down, it's how many times you get up, right? And again, I don't know why I'm picking on Floyd. Floyd is a tremendous athlete, and he's a superstar. But you couldn't put together a 50-0 record in MMA. It's not possible, right? So it's okay to lose, And way back in the early days, we had a guy named Tank Abbott that everyone loved. I don't even know if he won more than he lost. I forgot. I can't even remember. But it didn't matter. And I think in some ways it's the style of fighting. So if a fighter comes out for Combate and they give it their all and they're coming forward and they're, very aggressive in how they fight and it doesn't go their way, I'm always going to give that guy or girl another fight.
Well, expanding on that a little bit, I watched Combate's last event because I'm a huge Thunder Rosa fan. I'm a huge Thunder Rosa fan. Who isn't? I was a huge Thunder Rosa fan as a pro wrestler, and now I'm a huge converted Thunder Rosa fan MMA. How do you feel like she did in her debut? She went the distance. She didn't pick up the victory, but she definitely looked like she belonged.
I think, it reminded me, not so much stylistically, but in terms of the overall outcome. Amanda Serrano fights for us. Amanda is the most... has forgive me, Amanda. Now it's 6 championship belts in 6 different weight classes in boxing. So only Oscar De La Hoya and Manny Pacquiao have done that. So she's a tremendous boxer. She came into Combate, it had been a year ago in the spring, her first fight, went the distance, went 3 rounds. She hit her opponent so hard, the woman skidded across the mat. But being a Mexican didn't knock her out. And then came back. And Amanda fought a good fight, went the distance, and it was awarded. In California, you can have a tie. I remember at the time I was going, I invented the fucking sport. It's a tie. When did this become soccer? I didn't know what the fuck had happened. And they were going, Campbell, in California, if you win the 1 third round dramatically, you get to have a tie. Okay. So, Thunder Rosa reminded me of that. I think she didn't win, all right, but she went the distance. She hung in there. There was no point where she gave up. There wasn't a second. She fought and she fought and she fought, and she was terrific. And I think her learning curve has probably went like that. And I think the next time around, it's going to be an amazing bout for her.
Could you possibly ever see her headlining a Combate event?
Oh, I don't see why not. she's got a great following. She can talk, right? She's got a way to separate herself from the pack, so she understands that. I think a lot of what comes out of wrestling is the showmanship. You say showwomanship? It doesn't sound quite right. But the stagecraft, the showmanship, the way that you can separate yourself from everybody else, that's something I like Combate fighters to think about. So obviously she's great at that. Is she a terrific athlete? Just look at her. Look at how she performs. I think she needs to find Hoist Gracie, who was the first UFC champion, and obviously, I don't know, it's obvious, a very old dear friend of mine. So he says in MMA, if you come into MMA from another sport, from wrestling, from boxing, you can't win with jiu-jitsu or those skills. You've got to win with whatever the skill is that you came in with. But if you use jiu-jitsu properly, it's a great defense for you, right? So if you're a boxer and you study the jiu-jitsu, it'll help you get the takedown, know what to do, stay out of trouble. For Thunder Rosa, I think she's got to figure out what is the skill that's best for her, right? It might be ground and pound. She's got to figure out what skill is the one that she's going to win with, right? She's a great athlete, great balance, great reflexes, is always thinking in a fight, but she's got to figure out what are my tools that get me to a win.
Well, it's nice to have an analyst actually break down precisely what makes an MMA fighter great, utilizing all of those skills. Before we go, Campbell, can you remind the viewers about Combate's live events coming up for Access?
Sure. We're going to do 35 events next year. 35 events! Only the UFC is doing more, and ours are better. I guarantee we got a higher percentage of more fun shows. Guaranteed your money back. You'll see those shows on Access. We're going to be in the U.S. We're going to be in Mexico. Those are our two home countries, really. Puerto Rico, January. Puerto Rico has not seen a world-class MMA event since I brought UFC 7 there, so it's going back a year or two. So Puerto Rico next year, Buenos Aires, I think Medellin. Just because it's so fucking cool. We'll be back in Lima, of course, and not done yet, but I believe we're going to be in Spain. We do great TV ratings in Spain. We're on a network called Goal. Same network as Barcelona, Real Madrid, the two famous football clubs. Did I mention I beat the UFC in Bellator in Spain? So that's what we got. 35 events is going to be great.
35 events. Campbell, I am looking forward to every single one. Thank you so much for talking with me today. Good luck and God bless.